been doing open pollinated breeding for as long as we've domesticated plants. Because anybody who's growing, just naturally, if you're growing something and saving seed on it, you're going to be selecting plants to save seed on that are the best and that work for you. I don't know how long we've been hybridizing seed, but easy to find out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So how does seed stop, like, open pollinating after a certain amount of generations, or they open pollinate?
Goes on forever. Yeah, if you have an open pollinated variety.
Okay, I got confused.
You will, it's basically like for the early girl, or the dirty girl tomato seed, we saved seed on it. And we have it in our seed cabinet right now, and we'll sow that in the greenhouse, and we'll transplant those plants into the ground in the springtime, and we'll harvest dirty girl tomatoes all season, and then we'll save seed from the tomatoes at some point, and then we'll just keep going, and it'll continue to be refined over time as long as we're doing. I mean, this is the other thing about open pollinated plant breeding, is that you actually do have to be paying attention. So if you just save whatever, you could potentially be making that variety worse over time if you're not actually intentionally choosing for characteristics that you want when you're saving seed. If you're not being careful in your selection, then you could damage a variety rather than improve it. So you have some control, but you also have to pay attention and be aware.
Are Dirty Girl seeds available on the market?
No.
Okay, cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, I like hunted him down.
Yeah.
Yeah. A couple years ago, I was like, can I get some seed from you? And he's like, well, you can buy my tomatoes at the market. So I did.
Point. Yeah.
Whoa.
And something happened. So we saved seed on the plants the Dirty Girl tomatoes that we bought at the market. And then rats ate them.
Oh.
And so the next year, I was like, can I get some starts from you? So I actually got some of his tomato starts and planted those. And then we grew those out, and then we saved the seed. And so these are the first ones from out here, are the first tomato plants from seed that we saved.
Nice.
When did we save them this year too? When?
We have to. It was towards the end of the apprenticeship program. It was like the last week of the apprenticeship program I did it with apprentices.
Oh, cool.
What's the process for saving tomato seeds? Isn't it like you have to do something like an acid treatment or something?
Just like ferment
I
them
took
for a bit.
photos. Yeah, so for tomato seed, obviously, as I said, you want to pick, for every plant that you're saving seed on, and this is a little bit of a new avenue for me, but depending on the genetics of the plant, they'll say you should have like 16 different plants, from your variety, or, it's more or less depending on the crop that you're saving on. But I think we saved like 10 or 15, we saved tomato seed from 10 or 15 different plants. So you have some diversity. And then, I'm just gonna try to find photos.
I tried to save some for Scott. Like we went out and tried to do it, and then he let them mold.
Oh yeah. So you have to be. Here's our.
So then, what's the story behind saving heirloom seeds?
Heirlooms are just old open pollinated seeds that have a story. So heirloom seeds are open pollinated, and typically they just have like a history or a story associated with them, and they're really old. Like they're a variety that's been grown now. I don't know if there's like an actual distinction, like 100 years makes it an heirloom, or there probably is. But if it's been that particular variety has been bred through open pollinated breeding for a number of years, then it's heirloom. So it's the same thing. Okay, so for tomato seeds, you take your tomatoes that you want to save seed on. You can either just take a whole bunch of them and like mash them in a bucket. Mm-hmm. You're breaking up the skin and the flesh and can, mash them in a bucket. Alternatively, you can actually cut them in half and kind of scoop out the inside and put them in a jar. Both of those are options. We've always scooped out the inside. It's just like less to deal with. But you need there to be a fair amount of liquid also, which there is just naturally when you do that. So we scoop out the inside, all of the seeds and the flesh into a jar, and then the seeds, then they have this like anti-germination coating on them that has to be, it's like a germination inhibitor on the outside of them, which makes sense if you think about it. Like tomatoes are sitting in liquid inside. Yeah. Tomato seeds are sitting in liquid.
And
so
it's
if
acidic.
they didn't have a way, something that kept them from germinating, right? They would germinate within the tomato, which is not what we want. So what we have to ferment them to kind of break down that the germination inhibitors that are on the seed. And so we put them in the liquid. They ferment for 1 to 3 days. You just kind of watch them, and I think it's supposed to be like 70-degree ambient temperature if possible. And then at which point you kind of do this like decanting process, which is so when you ferment them, they will separate from all of their all of the flesh, basically. And so what you get from there is, I think, seeds that have settled on the bottom and flesh that's, or is the other way around? Great. Seeds that have settled, whichever's lighter. Maybe the seeds, because there's some air in there. So the seeds will separate in that liquid from the rest of the material. And when you see that, then you can feel pretty confident that they're ready to go. If you leave them too long, they'll actually germinate in the water. They'll start to imbibe water and germinate. So you want to be careful of that.
Do all nightshades have that, or just tomatoes? The anti-germinating coat.
I don't know. Yeah, I haven't saved other nightshades.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. But there's a lot of really good seed saving books out there that would have that information for you. So then you kind of decant them. So you're kind of cleaning them. So decanting is just a process of adding more water. Well, you pour off liquid that you can pour off. But then to continue to clean them, you add water, stir it up, let it settle, pour it off, add water, stir it up, let it settle, pour it off. And you do that process cleans the seed. And then you take that seed and you lay it out on, well, we did actually on coffee filters, works really well, because coffee filters kind of absorb the moisture, but then the seeds don't stick to the coffee filters. But something like that. I've just put them on like a cookie sheet before, and that works fine too. And then you just want to let them dry, and then you're good to go. Cool. It's pretty easy. Yeah. Let's see.
Sounds intimidating.
It's not. No.
After saying all of that, it was like.
So here's us like.